They say a home without respect is like a drum without skin. It may look like an instrument, but no sound will ever come from it. In the village of Umawaka, where the sun rose over the tall palm trees and elders gathered under the iroko tree to settle disputes, respect was not just a word. It was the very foundation of life. Every marriage, every friendship, every bond of kinship was built on it. But in that same village, there lived a woman named Ngozi, whose beauty was spoken of far and wide, but whose pride grew even faster than her beauty. Ngozi was young, tall, and graceful. Her skin glowed like fresh palm oil under the sun, and her eyes sparkled like the morning dew. Men who passed through Umawaka would often whisper to themselves, "Ah, who is that fine woman by the stream?" And the villagers would proudly say, "That is Ngozi, the wife of Obinna." Now, Obinna was a humble man. He was not the richest, nor was he the strongest. But he had a heart of gold and hands that never tired of working. From sunrise to sunset, Obinna was in the fields, tending to his yams, planting cassava, or climbing palm trees for wine. His neighbors often admired his dedication. "Obinna is a good man," they would say. But Ngozi, her mouth is sharper than a blade. Yes, Ngozi's beauty was dazzling, but her tongue was poisonous. She never saw her husband as the good man he was. Instead, she measured him against wealthier men in the village. One evening, after Obinna returned from the farm, drenched in sweat and carrying a bundle of firewood on his shoulders, Ngozi stood at the doorway with folded arms. "Obinna," she scoffed, "look at you. Is this what I married? Other women's husbands are buying them wrappers, jewelry, and sweet perfumes from the city. And you," she pointed at the bundle of firewood, "you bring me sticks." "Sticks, Obinna." Obinna dropped the firewood quietly and looked at her with tired eyes. "Ngozi," he said softly, "is it not these sticks that will cook your food tonight? Must you always compare me with others?" But Ngozi turned her back and hissed loudly, her beaded waist shaking as she walked inside. That night, as Obinna sat outside under the moonlight, his neighbor, old Mama Efioma, passed by and noticed his gloomy face. "Obinna, my son," she said, lowering her voice, "why do you look like a man carrying the whole world on his shoulders?" Obinna sighed deeply. "Mama Efioma, how can a man be happy when his own wife does not respect him? From morning till night she mocks me. Even in front of strangers, she calls me useless." Mama Efioma shook her head slowly. "My son, respect is the oil in the lamp of marriage. Without it, the flame dies. Be patient, Obinna. Sometimes the yam that takes longer to cook becomes the sweetest. But patience is like water in a clay pot. It does not last forever if cracks begin to." The next morning, the village awoke to gossip. At the stream, where women gathered to fetch water, Ngozi's voice rang out loud enough for all to hear. "My husband Obinna?" She laughed, slapping the water with her calabash. "That one is a poor man. If not for my beauty, I would have married someone far better. Look at Chaik, for example, see how he takes care of his wife." Meanwhile, Obinna still wears the same old wrapper he wore 3 years ago. The women gasped. Some shook their heads. Others exchanged knowing looks. "Aye, Ngozi has no fear," one whispered. "Does she not know that even the earless goat hears gossip?" Another replied that by midday, the gossip had reached the elders who sat under the iroko tree. The oldest among them, Pa Nadozi, stroked his gray beard and sighed. He said, "I knew this day would come. Ngozi has beauty but no humility. A woman who mocks her husband is like a hen that pecks at its own egg soon. She will have nothing left." But still, the elders kept silent. After all, it was not yet their place to interfere in the matters of a young couple. Days turned into weeks, and Ngozi's disrespect only grew. When visitors came, she would scold Obinna in their presence. "Move, you useless man. Can't you see I am talking?" she would say, waving her hands as though brushing away flies when food was prepared. She often cooked only for herself, leaving Obinna to find scraps. "Am I your servant?" she would retort whenever Obinna asked for a meal. And at night, when the moon was full and couples in the village shared laughter under the stars, Obinna often sat alone in silence, wondering how his life had turned into such misery. His friends noticed his quietness. One evening, his childhood friend Emeka confronted him. "Obinna, why do you suffer in silence? A man is not a tree, to stand and endure every storm. Speak to the elders before Ngozi destroys your spirit." But Obinna shook his head. "How can I take the mother of my children before the council? The shame would be mine as well." And so he endured, but the village had eyes, and the village had ears. Even children began to whisper when they saw Obinna pass by. "See the man whose wife controls him," they said, giggling. One particular day, during the annual New Yam Festival, when the entire village gathered to celebrate with dancing, drumming, and masquerades, Ngozi's arrogance reached its peak. As Obinna approached with his humble basket of yams, Ngozi turned to her friends and laughed loudly. "Is this what a husband should be? Look at him, sweating and dirty, carrying ordinary yams like a servant. If only I had listened to my mother, I would have married someone of status, not this." She paused for effect. "This farmer!" The laughter of her friends echoed across the square, and Obinna's heart sank. Elders who sat nearby exchanged glances. Their patience thinning. Pa Nadozi leaned toward another elder and muttered, "A calabash that floats too proudly on water will soon crack against the rocks." That evening, as the drums faded and the masquerades disappeared into the darkness, the elders finally agreed. Something had to be done. The whispers of the village had grown too loud. Ngozi's disrespect was no longer a private matter. It was a wound spreading through the entire community. And so, under the moonlight, word spread that the council would soon summon Ngozi and Obinna to sit under the great Iroko tree, where truth is spoken and lessons are learned. The village waited, some eagerly, others in fear. What would happen when the prideful woman faced the wisdom of the elders? The air grew heavy with suspense, for in Omiwaka, no one could escape the judgment of the Iroko tree. In every African village, the walls may not have ears, but the wind surely carries whispers. And in Omiwaka, the whispers about Ngozi's sharp tongue and Obinna's silent suffering traveled faster than the sound of the evening drums dotted the stream, where women bent to scoop water into their calabashes. They gossiped. "Did you hear what Ngozi said to her husband during the festival?" one asked. "Yes, oh, another replied. "She called him a servant in front of everyone. If it were my husband, I would have been carried away by the spirits that very night." They shook their heads in disbelief, their voices rising with disapproval. In the marketplace, where traders spread their wares, yam, palm oil, dried fish, and peppermint sat in groups, frowning as they spoke. "Obinna is a good man," one said, "but how can he continue to live with such humiliation?" Another spat on the ground. "A tree cannot stand if its roots are eaten by termites. If he does nothing, that woman will destroy him completely." Even children, innocent as they were, had learned to mock. Whenever Obinna walked by, they whispered behind their hands, "See the man whose wife controls him." Their giggles pierced his heart more than any knife could. The elders of Omiwaka, men whose heads were crowned with gray hair and wisdom, gathered under the Iroko tree. The eldest, Pa Nadozi, leaned on his staff as he spoke. "My brothers, a storm is brewing. When a woman loses respect for her husband, the whole village feels the tremor. If we do not act, what example are we setting for our sons and daughters?" Elder Okonkwo nodded. "In our culture, respect is not demanded, it is given freely. But Ngozi gives none. If this continues, our children will think marriage is a mockery. The time has come to call her and Obinna before us." And so, A messenger was sent to Obinna's hut. When the messenger arrived, Obinna was sitting outside, weaving a basket. Ngozi lounged nearby, painting her nails with red dye made from camwood. "The elders request your presence under the iroko tree tomorrow," the messenger announced. Obinna bowed his head. "I will be there." But Ngozi laughed, tossing her head proudly. "Let the elders talk. What can they do? Is it a crime to speak the truth? If my husband is poor and useless, should I pretend otherwise?" The messenger shook his head in silence and left, his spirit heavy. That night, Obinna could not sleep. He lay awake, staring at the thatched roof of his hut, while Ngozi snored beside him. His heart battled within him. On one side was fear of what tomorrow would bring. On the other was hope. Perhaps the elders would finally make Ngozi see reason. Before dawn, Obinna rose and went outside. Under the fading stars, he prayed softly, "Chakwu, give me strength. Let this day bring peace, not disgrace." By sunrise, the news had spread through the entire village. "The council will sit today. Obinna and Ngozi will stand before the elders." People abandoned their chores and gathered under the iroko tree. Mothers carried their babies on their backs. Children chased each other around the gathering, and men leaned on their walking sticks, waiting eagerly. Everyone wanted to see how the drama would unfold. Ngozi, dressed in her finest wrapper and beads, walked proudly into the square, her chin lifted high. She looked more like a queen than a woman summoned for disrespect. Obinna followed quietly behind her, his head bowed, his footsteps heavy-dawed. When they reached the iroko tree, Ngozi raised his hand for silence. "My children," he began, "we are gathered here not to shame, but to correct. A home is like a cooking pot. If one leg is broken, the pot cannot stand. Ngozi and Obinna, your marriage is the pot. But we hear one leg is cracked. We must mend it before it breaks completely." The crowd murmured in agreement. Ngozi turned to Obinna. "My son, speak. Tell us what troubles your home." Obinna stood, his voice low but steady. "Fathers, my heart is heavy. My wife does not respect me. She mocks me in private. She insults me in public. She treats me as though I am less than a man. I have endured, for I do not wish to disgrace her. But my silence has become a burden too heavy to carry alone." The crowd sighed. Some shook their heads. Then Ngozi turned to Ngozi. "Daughter, you have heard your husband. What do you say?" Ngozi tossed her head and laughed. "Is it wrong to speak the truth? If a man is poor, is he not poor? Should I sing praises for what does not exist? Look at other women in this village. Their husbands provide. They wear fine wrappers. They eat meat every day. And me? I am married to a farmer who brings home sticks and sweat. If I speak, am I guilty?" Gasps echoed through the crowd. Elders frowned. Women whispered. Even children sensed the disrespect in her tone. Elder Okonkwo leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Ngozi, a woman's tongue can build or destroy her home. Do you not fear that your words are like fire, burning everything in their path?" But Ngozi shrugged, her pride unshaken. Ngozi sighed deeply. "Daughter, a calabash of water may look full, but a single crack can empty it. If you continue this way, you will lose what you hold dear. This is our warning. Change your ways before the ancestors themselves rise in anger." The council dismissed them, hoping their words would strike her heart. But as Ngozi walked away, she whispered to her friends, "Let the old men talk. Their time has passed. This is my life, and I will live it my way." Little did she know, the gods do not close their ears to the cries of the oppressed. And the more she mocked, the closer her downfall crept. The warning of the elders is like the sound of a gong. It echoes long after the strike. But in Ngozi's heart, the sound was lost. Instead of reflecting, she grew bolder. Weeks after the council's warning, a grand wedding was held in Umwaka. The whole village gathered to celebrate. Drums thundered, dancers swayed, and the air was thick with the smell of roasted goat meat and palm wine. Ngozi, dressed in a new wrapper she had forced Obinna to buy on credit, strutted about like a peacock. She laughed loudly, mocked her husband in front of guests, and even told strangers, if not for me, this man would be nothing. But fate, as the elders say, as a way of humbling the proud dot as the ceremony went on, Obinna's childhood friend, Emeka, stood up to speak. He praised the couple being married, then paused. His eyes found Ngozi. Marriage is not about beauty or wealth alone. It is about respect. Without respect, love dies. And without love, marriage becomes a prison. The crowd nodded in agreement. But Ngozi scoffed. Suddenly, Pa Nnadozie rose from where the elders sat. He lifted his staff and struck the ground 3 times. The drumming stopped. Silence fell. "My children," he declared, his voice booming. "We cannot continue to watch as Ngozi dishonors her husband and mocks our traditions. Tonight, before this entire village, she will answer for her actions." The crowd erupted in murmurs. The wedding celebration turned into a trial. Ngozi's eyes widened. What is this nonsense? Why should I answer to anyone for speaking the truth? Pa Nnadozie's eyes burned with authority. "Daughter, truth without respect is poison. You have mocked your husband, mocked this council, and mocked the ancestors who bless marriage. Tonight you will be judged." Obinna stood silently, his head bowed. Tears welled in his eyes, not for himself, but for the shame his wife had brought upon them both. The elders formed a circle. The villagers surrounded them, waiting. Elder Okonkwo spoke. "Ngozi, you must choose. Either humble yourself and seek forgiveness, or face the curse of disrespect, a curse that no beauty, no wealth, and no pride can withstand." The crowd gasped. Mothers clutched their children. The curse of disrespect was feared by all. It was said to strip a person of everything they valued until only ashes remained. Ngozi laughed loudly, her arrogance unbroken. "Curse me if you wish. I fear no words. My life is mine." The elders struck their staffs on the ground in unison. The air grew heavy. The drums began to beat slowly, not for celebration, but for judgment. The climax had come. The gods themselves seemed to hold their breath. What would become of Ngozi, the proud woman who spat on respect? The judgment of the elders was not just words. It was a mirror reflecting the future. And for Ngozi, that mirror cracked the moment she laughed at their warning. That very night, things began to change. Obinna, weary of years of humiliation, packed his few belongings and left the village. No one knew where he went. Some said he traveled to the city. Others whispered he went to join traders in a distant land. At first, Ngozi mocked his absence. "Let him go," she told her friends. "I will find another man easily." Men are like palm kernels, plentiful and waiting to be cracked. But weeks passed. Then months. No man came. Those who once admired her beauty now avoided her. Her friends, who had cheered her arrogance, found excuses to stay away. They whispered behind her back, "Ngozi has brought shame upon herself." Without Obinna's hard work, her hut grew empty. The yams rotted, the firewood finished, and her beauty began to fade. Hunger does not care for pride, and loneliness eats faster than termites. One evening, Ngozi went to the market, hoping to buy food on credit. But the traders shook their heads. "No, Ngozi," they said. "A woman who disrespected her husband has no trust left. Go and find Obinna if you want help." Tears stung her eyes for the first time. Seasons changed. The rains came and went. Ngozi, once the pride of the village, became a shadow of herself. Then one day word spread Obinna had returned. But he was no longer the humble, struggling farmer. He had prospered in the city. He came back with wealth, respect, and, beside him, A new wife, a humble, respectful woman who walked with grace. The village gathered in awe as Obinna and his new wife offered gifts to the elders and poured palm wine for the community. And there, standing at the edge of the crowd, was Ngozi, her eyes swollen with tears, her once beautiful face lined with regret. She fell to her knees and cried, "Obinna, forgive me. I was blind, foolish, and proud. Please, take me back." Obinna looked at her, his face calm but firm. "Ngozi," he said, "I gave you love, but you gave me shame. I gave you patience, but you gave me insults. Respect is not demanded, it is given. You refused to give it, and now it is too late." The crowd murmured. Some wept for Ngozi. Others shook their heads, saying, "She planted pride, and now she harvests tears." Ngozi stepped forward, lifting his staff. His voice carried the weight of ages. "Let this be a lesson for all who hear. Beauty fades, wealth comes and goes, but respect is the rope that ties two hearts together. Without it, even the strongest rope breaks." The drums beat once more, slow and heavy, as if the ancestors themselves agreed. Ngozi wept until her voice broke. The village pitied her, but no one could change the judgment she had brought upon herself. And so the tale of Ngozi spread beyond Umuaka, told from village to village as a warning. Mothers whispered it to their daughters. Fathers told it to their sons. A woman's beauty may capture the eyes, but only her respect can capture the heart. And when the heart is lost, even beauty becomes empty.